Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome to this week's card. Today I decided to do a little bit of watercolor. I'm using a new penny black stamp from their spring release called Softly. It's an oversized flower stamp. And I'm also using these Mama Elephant dies. They come two to this pack and they layer perfectly on cards. And they have a little dash line in there that also gets cut into your paper when you run it through your Sizzix or whatever die machine you have. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my stamp. I'm going to ink it up with some VersaFine black onyx ink. Make sure I get good coverage here. And I'm using some Strathmore watercolor paper, which is my favorite watercolor paper. I'm just going to press that down and then I'm going to clear emboss this. And I usually clear emboss before I watercolor just because it makes it really easy to stay in the lines. And because it's a pigment ink, you're going to be able to clear emboss it. Alright, so here's my first Inktense pencil. It's called Fuchsia, and I'm going to color the flowers here, and I'm just putting a very, very light little bit of color on the flower, and then I'll take my aqua painter. I start in the white area and I move to the color. So I'm going to show that again. So I'm just very light touch because these pencils are very vibrant and very colorful, so you don't need much. You start in the white area and then move your aqua painter toward the color. Now notice as I get deeper into the color and I get a lot of color on my brush, I wipe it off on the tissue because I want to be careful not to get too much color in the white area. It's really easy to overcolor, and if you do that then you get all one shade on the whole petal. So you want to move into the color and then wipe it off, and then move into the color again, wipe it off, and every time I put my brush back on the paper I'm starting in the white area. I'm speeding this up here. And I'm definitely leaving some white, so I'm not covering the entire petal. I'm making the ones that are behind a little bit darker because they will be shadowed by the front petals. But I think just leaving a little bit of white in each petal really makes it pop on the card. I'm going to do the same thing with the leaves. Another Inktense pencil here. Just a tiny little bit and then work my way from white to green. And these go pretty quickly. Now to do the little thingy at the bottom of the flower, I actually pulled some color directly from the pencil with my aqua painter. There just wasn't enough room to actually put color on the paper using the pencil. And I also find what really helps when I'm using these pencils as watercolor is when the tip is not so sharp. So if you have kind of a dull tip to your pencil, it doesn't kind of make grooves in your paper, because if it was really sharp it would make grooves of color in your paper, and then it's hard to blend it across the paper because it kind of gets stuck in that groove. So I would make sure your pencils are a little dull when you're doing this technique. Alright, now moving on to blue, and I'll have the colors on my blog. What I'm going to do is, again with a pretty dull tip, I'm going to lightly color around my flower. Just around all the edges here. And I'm going to be using the same technique I use with the flowers, with the pink. I'm just going to do a little section here, but normally I like to color the whole thing and then go back in with the watercolor. Alright, so I started in my white, and the difference here is I'm actually starting in the white, moving into the blue till I get to the edge, and then I pull it back out. And that'll kind of blend it into a from dark to light into the center of your paper. Now you can always add colors. You see there I wanted to add a little bit more color, so I just pulled it directly from the tip of the pencil, and that's not going to ruin your pencil at all. I've made big thick backgrounds doing that, and my pencil was fine. So what I'm doing here is I'm pulling out the blue just enough to kind of give like a little background behind these flowers, but I'm not going to pull it all the way to the edge of the card on the right hand side. On the left there's not as much space between the flower and the edge of the card, so I'm going to probably pull the color to the edge there, but on the right hand side I'm just going to pull it out enough to really fade it out to white. Sorry, I got a little off camera here. And I actually like to do this late at night because it's just kind of fun and relaxing to just sit there and color and just kind of get it right and take your time. Alright, so now I'm going to go back, and I decided I wanted it to be a little bit of a lighter color, so I'm applying a much lighter pressure with my pencil. But I'm still doing the same dull coloring all around. You can always add more color. Alright, I'm speeding this up. You kind of want it to look a little bit messy. So you want a little bit of water stains here and there. And the reason why I'm using watercolor paper is because when you're using regular paper, if it dries, if you pause for just a few seconds, the color will dry on your paper, and it's harder to get that color to blend, to wet it and get it to blend when it's on regular paper. But when you have watercolor paper, it dries, it seems to me that it dries a little bit slower, and even when it does dry, you can still sort of apply some water and get the color to blend. So if you're doing watercolor and you're not using watercolor paper, I would highly recommend that you get some. This brand that I use, Strathmore, it's very cheap. It's like, I don't know, $3 for 15 sheets or something like that. And you can get it online at Dick Blick, or you can get it at your local craft store. Alright, so now I'm going to start with my inside frame, and I'm putting my sentiment there so I know how far I want it to cut it to the right. I'm going to put some masking tape there to hold it down and run it through my Sizzix. I kind of tilted a little bit because I wanted the flower to be around the left side. Right now I've just got a piece of Nina Solar white cardstock, and I'm just going to run the outside frame through that. This is Memento Luxe Bahama Blue. And I'm taking a sponge dauber, and I'm just dipping it into my ink pad, and I'm kind of painting in little circles on my paper. And I'm leaving it a little bit cloudy, but if I wanted to, I could just pretty easily make it darker by taking a little bit more time. And there's plenty of time to do this because the ink does not dry quickly. And so I'm going to apply some clear embossing powder because this is pigment ink. And then I'm going to heat it to set it, and it's going to provide a really shiny, cool finish. Alright, I'm going to adhere my watercolor panel to my Bahama Blue. And then I'm going to stamp my sentiment in VersaFine. Again, pigment ink. I do a lot of clear embossing. And so I put my Stamp-A-Majig there just in case I wanted to stamp it twice, but it actually came out perfectly, and I didn't need to. So I'm going to heat this to set it. So it's very shiny, this card. There's lots of embossing on it. And then I'm going to adhere this to a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch folded piece of cardstock. And as you can see, the frames just fit beautifully on the regular standard A2 card. So that's it. As you can see, it's pretty shiny. I really like the Bahama Blue there behind it. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.